I can't emphasize how important it is to give yourself grace when you mess up and to talk to yourself when you mess up and be like, it's okay. It's okay. We messed up today and tomorrow is a new day and we can start fresh tomorrow. And just talk to yourself because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people, they're in the same loop of like, well, I ate like crap, so now I'm going to beat myself up. So now I'm going to be like good for a little bit, but then I'll feel bad and then I'll eat like crap. And it's just the same loop over and over and over. But if you break that and you say, you know what, today wasn't the best day and that's okay. And you go, tomorrow will be better. And you go on from there. You know, you don't have to dwell on it. You don't have to flog yourself or anything. You just keep going.
Hello and welcome. Kate Champion here. I am so excited you're listening today. Question: have you ever heard of corn rage? Yeah, me neither. Stay tuned. We're going to cover this and so much more. Let's welcome Kate Costa to the show. Kate is a certified health coach and Reiki Master with over 20 years in the wellness industry. Kate helps people to take back control of their health, helping them and guiding them make healthy day-to-day choices, things we can all do to create a happier, healthier life. Today, Kate shares her personal story, which includes her struggle with digestive and gut issues and how this has influenced her mental and emotional health. This is such an important conversation. And then we dive in. We talk about the connection between stored trauma and gut health, choosing traditional healthcare over alternative solutions, committing to putting in the work, yes, for the long haul, learning to trust your gut, no pun intended, and not beating yourself up. She catches me beating myself up and she calls me out on it. You'll get to hear that today too. And then yes, Kate tells us all about her experience with corn byproducts, which included inflammation and mood issues. And in Kate's case, that looked like intense anger and rage. Wow. Of course, Kate shares some helpful tips, strategies, and sage advice we can all begin to sprinkle into our day. I'm so grateful for Kate, her energy, vulnerability, gentle spirit, her powerful story, and passion for helping people create happy, healthy, sustainable lives is such a gift. And you know, that's what the show is all about, inspiring and supporting you to live longer, stronger, and more intentionally. So as you listen today, please subscribe, leave a review, and share the episode with a friend. Remember, you can now find this episode with video on YouTube. YouTube is also a great place to subscribe, leave your questions, comments, and suggestions for future topics and guests. Finally, remember to check out the show notes for all the good stuff, links, books, and other helpful resources. Whether you're listening for the first time or a regular, please know I appreciate you, I support you, and I thank you so much for listening today. And if I sound a little weird, it's because I have a cold. Anyway, okay, my friends, here's Kate. Hello, I am so happy to welcome Kate Costa to the show today. I'm smiling because she has the same name as I do, so I'm definitely not going to mess up the name today. So welcome, Kate. How are you?
I'm doing great. And thank you so much. Kate's Unite.
That's right. That's right. Now, if I look a little distracted, just because I'm distracted. I'm just all over the place. So if you see me kind of looking off to the side, it's because I'm looking at a tablet to help me with some just notes and things. So all of you that are watching on video, I am totally engaged, but also looking at some notes here too. So Kate, welcome, and please start by telling us a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your journey, your story, and how you got to doing what you're doing today.
Yeah, sure. So I, grew up as a young child, and I didn't realize it at the time, and it made sense later on. But I got sinus infections and bronchitis a lot as a kid, and as a teenager, I had what my parents would describe as a more formidable teenage years, you could say, and they just thought I was going through like a really bad stage of it or something. And it wasn't until I had a very traumatic event happen. The person that I had been dating for like 4 or 5 years, from the end of high school into college. He actually unalived himself, and I found him. And so after that is when I got my diagnosis of bipolar 2 and anxiety. And I was on medication for a long time, over a decade. And that started, in my early 20s when I was just about turning 21. And it wasn't until my late 20s that I started having major digestive issues that were not going away, were in fact getting worse, despite me eating, super healthy and doing all the things that you're supposed to do and, eating organic and whole wheat and, fresh fruits and vegetables and all of these things. And I was having a lot of joint pain and I had really bad melasma on my face. And,
Mm,
I didn't feel like myself. Um, I had gone through some bad relationships after that as well, and had recently ended one when the melasma really kind of came to a head in the middle of winter, which, if anybody
mm,
knows what melasma is, it's hormonal hyperpigmentation that is also called the pregnancy mask. And it really affects a lot of women, especially from Mediterranean or darker colors. And so for me, it was devastating as a then esthetician to be like, and here's my face that I can't control my own hyperpigment, so it was devastating. And
mm,
then mix that with the joint pain that I was having. I was really kind of like, what is going on with me right now? So after a period of time, and looking up, oh, should I glucosamine and chondroitin to help out and wearing wrist braces and stuff. And I'm like, not even 30 years old and I'm having
I
all
was,
these issues and falling apart. What's going on here? And so finally I went to the doctor and he told me that I was just constipated. And I was like, there's undigested food in my, like in that doesn't compute for me. So he
mm,
sent me to a gastroenterologist. And I was living with some women at the time, and one of them was celiac. And so I was, she saw my journey and was like, this sounds very familiar. And I'm like, well, then maybe I'm celiac, and the gastroenterologist to test me, and that'll be the end of that. And I'll have my answer, and at least I'll know what to do from there. Well, that's not exactly what happened, unfortunately. I did not, in fact, test positive for celiac. And to
mm,
this day, still don't. So, um, it was very frustrating on my end because they couldn't give me any answers. And that's really what I was, going to them for, which is
mm,
what most people do. They go to the doctors for answers. So
yeah.
for me, they just wanted to, like, give me an antispasmodic for my stomach issues. And, that medication's since been pulled because it's not safe. So it's like, okay, you know? So my older sister, she had something similar. And so I was like, hey, I'm having these issues. And she just kind of laughed a little bit and was like, oh, yeah. And so she told me about how she did an elimination diet because she had something similar that she went through a couple of years before that. And so I did an elimination diet and had a little bit of, kind of a guidance because of her to be like, oh, okay, these are things that trigger for her, maybe they might trigger for me too. So I did an elimination diet, and through doing that, figured out that I absolutely do not do well with grains. Rice is, but like corn, wheat, with the gluten and just wheat in general, and oats they're very triggering for me. I get psoriasis from them and dermatitis. I get puffy. I get joint pain.
Mm,
I get something
mm.
called corn rage, which a lot of people don't know about, but
I do not, and that's on my notes. I do want to dive into corn rage.
yeah,
Let's
so
make sure yeah.
it's pretty wild. So once I started taking out all of these foods and, really feeling good, I was kind of scared to go to bring them back in to be like, am I reacting to this? Oh, yes, I am. Yes, I am. So
Okay.
that was a little nerve-wracking, but it was good. And I did, like, a journal to be able to notate like what I'm bringing back in and how I'm
Mm,
feeling and what's going on with me and stuff. So it was, it did take time, but um, even the food sensitivity tests that you can get at, the allergist and stuff like that, they're not foolproof. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's more just a snapshot of what you're reacting to, like at any given time that you've had a lot of or something. Like, say you've been eating a lot of carrots. Well, if you have leaky gut, that might flag for carrots, but you're not really actually sensitive to carrots. So the elimination diet is kind of the gold standard. And yes, it takes longer, but one, it doesn't cost any money, which sometimes I don't know if you've ever done an allergy test, but if your insurance doesn't cover it, it's quite costly. And so, I did that and it was mind blowing because I felt so good, so good. And so, working with my therapist, and realizing over the years like, hey, I can do this or I can't do this, and I like, just figuring things out and what works for my body and me
Mm.
personally was huge. And I realized talking to my therapist that maybe I didn't have to stay on medication all my life, because if I'm doing so well, can we try to like tighter down on the medication, just see how it goes? And she wholeheartedly agreed. She was like, absolutely, I think that's a great idea. I'm not really sure why you're in therapy right now because your reactions are pretty normal. And I'm like, oh, okay. Going from somebody who had been diagnosed as bipolar 2, to that is
Wow.
like complete 180. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I did that, and I haven't been on medication in over 8 years. I went off and never went back on. I
Wow.
have to learn
Wow.
how to modulate my emotions and deal with them without having, the crux of being on medication to kind of numb it and even it out a little bit.
Mm.
Once I implemented those tools using cognitive behavioral therapy, um, it became a lot easier for me to navigate the day-to-day stuff that, in the past, I had just been like, oh, well, I'm just going to pop a pill. And
Mm.
so this was just really profound for me. And learning all of this, it was kind of like, well, look at the state of our food here in the US. Look at the state of our mental health here in the US. And why is this not talked about everywhere? Everywhere, everywhere. It should be like number one before you go on any kind of medication. How's your diet? That should be the first question asked.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
not. And so that's kind of why
Yeah.
I became a health coach, was because I'm just so passionate about this. During the time of doing the elimination diet and in between then and becoming a health coach, I read an awful lot. And this was before Google really came out. So,
Mm.
I'm just it was interesting doing all of that. But um, I read an awful lot about how food interacts with our bodies, how our gut interacts with our minds, how, different things can trigger, different mental issues that may not be from having a chemical imbalance. And
Sure.
so, I really became very passionate about it. And when COVID hit, I realized that I had an opportunity to actually take my passion and the knowledge that I already have and help other people. And so I went back to school and kind of pivoted from, being an esthetician and doing the spa world to staying in the wellness, community still, but kind of being more like, okay, how can I, help people recognize these things in themselves so that they can therefore, like, maybe not have to be on quite so much medication, if any medication at all, or, they can just be a happier person, less joint pain, just have a more fulfilling life overall. And that's, I want to scream it from the from the rooftops, just being like, hey, this is what's going on, because you see the state of the world and the state of our food, and it's just like, what? So I went to school, and halfway through schooling I filed for divorce, which was a whole nother
Oh.
lesson as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it was through that actually, and going to school, that I realized that a lot of the symptoms that I have, for anxiety and stuff, some of the stuff also happens when I'm feeling kind of triggered. from
Yeah.
things from the past.
Yeah.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I looked more into that and into, PTSD just because of, what happened to me when I was in my early 20s with my ex-boyfriend, but then also CPTSD, which is chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a little bit different, and the symptoms very much mimic someone who has ADHD, which surprisingly enough, I got tested for a lot as a child. So everything kind of
Okay.
started to make sense as I've gone through this journey and realizing that, okay, so I'm having all of these issues. How much of it is because I haven't been, fully present with the emotions that I've felt in my life and the circumstances and the events that have happened in my life that may not have been ideal. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's when I really started looking at energy and decided to incorporate Reiki into things as well. Because for me, like I said, I was eating, so healthy and stuff, but there was just one kind of missing area that I just couldn't quite get over
Mm-hmm.
that hump. And it's still something that I consciously have to work on every day because it's still something that I'm, things from that, I don't know, when I was two, that you don't even realize, oh,
Yeah.
I cried a little too long this day, or whatever
Yeah.
was upsetting at that time. Um, you still hold it in. And there's a book called Body Keeps the Score that is
Good.
fabulous read. And I really believe in that just because for me, myself, and working with people, I have seen that time and time again. So, I really wanted to incorporate not just the gut health, but also the emotional and mental impact of all of it. And kind of like that's a
Yeah.
full kind of armor going at what issues you've got going on. So it's just
Yeah.
kind of the stuff that I totally geek out over and just want to help as many people as I can so that they know that they aren't alone and that they're not stuck and that there is nothing wrong with them and that their body is just giving them clues. And it's just trying to kind of like figure out what your body's saying to you. But you have to get quiet and you have to actually listen to your body. And in this day and age, that's not necessarily what people want to hear or are used to. We're very much used to like, oh, okay, just pop a pill and here's the easy button and I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that later. But later comes and then you're on your deathbed and that's it.
Yeah.
So I really want to kind of just bring more balance to not just myself and the people around me, but also to anybody else that's willing to, take a chance on themselves and recognize that there's more to their life and more to life in general, not just theirs, but in general, to kind of, have a more fulfilling experience here.
Yeah. Yeah. So much there. So, I mean, there's so many points I want to touch on. So thank you for sharing. I think one of the things that I'm hearing is that, hey, how long did this kind of journey, and I know you're still, I believe we all are, right? How long did this take? I mean, a decade, 15 years to kind of to get to this point? Because I think that is really important because it's in this world of kind of instant gratification and quick fix and the magic bullet, we all want it to be fixed in air quotes
Well,
now. But how long are we looking at here? Because this takes time.
to be fair, I didn't have a Kate and integrate with Kate, to help me and guide me through the process and stuff. So it was literally me, researching things and trial and
Mhm.
error and what works and what doesn't work and like, reading studies. And so for me, I started, well, I got diagnosed, we'll say 21, just at 21, and I'm now
Okay.
43.
Okay, that's 20 solid years, right? Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I do really want to hear, I want people to hear that this, if you choose to go this route, right, instead of the doctor and the quick fix, this is A, it's work, and B, it takes time. And the three, I think there's often, this energy of like two steps forward and three steps
Mhm.
back. and it can feel lonely. I mean, so what was this? Because 20 years ago, the world looked very differently, right? Too,
Yeah.
like you said, you didn't have Google, so this is very different. So, what two or three of the hardest things for you as you kind of began to do this journey, if you like?
Um, for me, it was recognizing that not everybody cares,
Uh,
and that's
tell me more.
okay.
Tell me more.
Mhm.
I want to hear more about that. Tell me more.
Well, it's kind of like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So I just drop little nuggets here and there to get people thinking. And if it aligns with them, and at some point in the future, they decide, hey, you know what? That person said that thing. And I didn't think too much of it at the time, but now looking
Mm,
back, ding, 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 let me go look this up kind of thing. So I just plant seeds where I can.
hmm
But yeah, I mean, I can't heal anybody, you know?
Oh,
You have to heal yourself. I can help you. I can help facilitate it. I can give you resources. I can give you handouts. I can give you everything to help guide you on the journey. But if you aren't going to do the work, it's like
yeah.
AA, it works if you work it. And you have to want it more than I do. So, and be willing to put in the work. It's not easy, but I think everybody gets to a point where you're just feeling so sick and tired of being sick and tired that
Mm,
you hit bottom and you're just like, I can't do this again. I can't do this anymore. I need something's got to change. Something's got to change because I'm gonna, either get
yeah.
very sick, cancer, whatever it is. Or
Yeah.
so I think a lot of people, myself included, kind of had to get to that point of being like, okay, this is what we're looking at here. And
Mm,
then realize, okay, I'm not going to be able to do anything unless I actually do something. So, you got to put your big kid panties on and hop to
yeah.
it if you
Yeah.
want any change in your life.
Yeah.
But
I think
yeah,
another.
especially for like family members and stuff and loved
Mm,
ones, having to let go of that and be like offer if they want, but recognize that that may not be part of their journey and having to be okay with that. And that is really hard
tough
for
one.
me sometimes because, my dad's got diabetes too. He's got Alzheimer's and is pretty advanced at this point. And, um, my sister had one of my sisters had breast cancer, MS. Like we have a lot of
Yeah.
familial,
Yeah.
tendencies. So I'm just like, okay, okay. And you just have
Yeah.
to let them do their own life. So that was probably the hardest one for me is realizing that not everybody is going to want the same information that you have learned or care about it.
Or willing to do the work and make the change, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's it too. Yeah.
That's hard, right?
Yeah.
That's hard. So I want to switch gears a little bit. I am interested in corn rage. What the heck is corn rage? Kate, please
So
share.
for me, and for a lot of people, when they consume corn, which can be like not just, oh, I'm having a piece of corn, but also the corn derivatives, which can be like xanthan gum, citric acid, ascorbic acid, glycerin. And you won't know these things unless you have a corn sensitivity or allergy. And then you have to read all of the labels, and corn is in everything, like everything. And um, it causes a lot of inflammation
Mm,
and can disrupt the gut. And the gut and the brain are very much connected. They are talking to each other back and forth all day, every day, through the vagus nerve, as well as through enzymes that just communicate to each other and stuff. And that's why you get sour stomach. That's why you get a pit in the bottom of your stomach. That's why, if you're feeling anxious, you can make yourself throw up. And
yeah.
also, if your stomach's off, it can make you feel anxious, even if you have nothing to feel anxious about. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting, but it basically causes so much inflammation that it causes inflammation in other places too. And so the neuroinflammation that's what would happen to me is with the, bipolar diagnosis. I didn't know that I had these sensitivities. And
Mm,
so that's why I ended up having really bad carpal tunnel and stuff, was because my body was getting so inflamed from eating these things. And whether or not the chicken came before the egg doesn't really matter. I just needed to heal my gut and get myself, feeling better. So
mm.
it was you can like it's almost, I don't know how to describe it. It's like otherworldly, almost like you for me, it's I am seeing it all unfold, and I have no control over it. Like,
When you
so
say all, like the mood and
the
the
mood, the anger,
outburst
the
and
rage, and just not being
okay.
able to, it just bubbles up, comes out of nowhere. There's like a switch, and all of a sudden you're just like, and I couldn't like hold it back or hold it in. And it
Regulate, right?
was
You can't regulate.
no, not even with like doing all of the tools, because I had been in therapy for a long time, from having had, my ex die and me find him. That was very traumatic. So I was in therapy for
Yes.
that. So I was learning lots of things and how to, use tools and stuff like that, but it was just not, it was, nope. It wasn't until I removed the things that were inflaming my body personally that I, was able to get that in check and be able to actually implement those tools on a regular basis. Because otherwise there was no, and it was terrible
Mm,
because I would feel so bad. It was like I dissociated, and it would be like I'm like watching the scene unfold, and I don't want to be doing or saying these things, but here I am doing and saying these things, and they're terrible, and I
yeah.
don't, and it hurts me, like, because I love these people. I don't want to be like this. And it reminded me a lot of how I was when I was a teenager, and I would feel so bad afterwards, and I would just cry and cry and tell my parents I was so sorry and stuff, and it was just I had no control. And so that's what would happen. And so like I had explosive relationships when I was younger. I didn't have good value of myself anyways. So I was with people that triggered me a lot regardless. And then adding that on top of it, it was just a recipe for disaster. And
Oh my
then,
gosh.
from those relationships further, again, the body keeps the score. That's when I got the melasma to try to hide myself. And so it's fascinating to me the way that the body gives you little, like I said, kind of hints. Hey, this is what's going on with me. You just have to pick up on them and kind of realize, oh, this is what my body's trying to tell me.
I'm guessing the chances are that you're listening today because, like me, you are all about creating a longer, stronger, more intentional life. And did you know that there is a great way to take one more step towards that goal? By signing up for Living Big Mindfully's community news. That's right. So why sign up? Well, you'll get new podcast episodes delivered straight into your inbox. You'll be the first to hear about exclusive offers, retreats, and community events, all designed to help you stay stronger for longer. And as a therapist with a women's health and longevity certification, I share all the great stuff I am learning. From the latest in muscle health to brain health to emotional fitness and well-being. Basically, all the tools, support, and encouragement you need to thrive and squeeze every ounce out of this precious life. So how do you sign up? It's simple. Head over to katechampionauthor.com, click on the community news link, and let's get connected today. Oh, and just so you know, it's completely free. We never share your information, and you can unsubscribe at any time. So take, please, this one step for yourself. Go to katechampionauthor.com and sign up today. I cannot wait to see you there. Okay, let's get back to the show. So there's just a couple, but first of all, I just want to really honor, I can't imagine, I mean, when you describe this kid, right, with these massive emotions and these kind of out of body experiences and how painful that must have been for you and the people around you and how terrifying too, right, to really feel like you can't kind of get a handle on things. So I just really want to honor that. It's just so painful. And this second thing I want to say is like, I mean, people are diagnosed with these big feelings, with these big outbursts, like multiple times, thousands of times every day. And how much do you think is related to kind of gut health and food? And I honestly have to add sleep in there. I think quality, restful, restorative sleep and food and movement, right? I mean, I don't think we can take just one component, but the
Mm-mm.
sleep, the food, movement, and some other things are so crucial. How much do you think we are overdiagnosing or misdiagnosing because of some disruption in the gut system?
I mean, it's really hard to try to even give a statistic like that, but as I mentioned, corn is literally in everything in its derivatives. So if you're sensitive to corn, you don't know it. You're in a lot of trouble because I mean, like if you're not eating whole foods and you're eating a lot of, processed foods that are in packages and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it's the xanthan gum that's stabilizing and like keeping things together if you can't have gluten. And it's also, the citric acid and the ascorbic acid that are
Mm.
preservatives and stuff. So it's so superfluous. So it's really hard to put a number on something like that, but to touch on a little bit of something that you said with the sleep, I think a lot of that stems from stress and cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and gut health are very much interlinked. And I talk a lot about that actually in my book. Gut Feelings, as well as the course that I came out with, the Happier and Healthier Gut Academy. And I really, especially in the academy, the online course, I really deep dive into those things because I really think they're very important. And I give, tips and tricks like, to better help you kind of regulate your body and to have you feel more safe in your body and stuff. And, like wearing blue light blocking glasses at night so that you have better sleep hygiene and making sure that you use, room darkening shades if you're in the city or something so that you don't have a
Mm.
lot of ambient light coming in because, it can mess with your melatonin production. And so it's really hard to put a number on that, but you think about how stressed out most people are,
Oh,
especially now, and it's just again, it's which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's all together, and so I think it's quite possible that it's very high the amount that we are overdiagnosing people
hmm.
of having things when it's actually just gut health.
Yeah, yeah. And
Or
I'm
maybe,
thinking,
or even just like, hey, you have stored trauma and you need to work on that.
oh, that's huge. I mean, I also want to honor that, right? I mean, I'm a therapist, I work with people, and I often, people go to the doctor after doctor after doctor, and there's like, there's nothing wrong with you. They have all these tests, there's nothing wrong with you, there's nothing wrong with you. Everything comes back normal, quote
Mhm.
unquote, whatever
In
that means.
range.
And then, right. And then somebody refers them to me, and I call it a mystery illness. Like this person has kind of this mystery illness, and we start to kind of unravel the onion a little bit. And we just see that there's just this massive river of kind of trauma, right? That has never been grief. I say grief, loss, trauma, right? That has
Mhm.
never been dealt with. And all that pain, right? Talked about energy and Reiki, like all that pain just gets locked in little boxes or little knots in the body, and it gets pushed down and pushed down and pushed down. And that is going to come out somehow, right? It's going to come out. If it isn't depression or anxiety or mood stuff, it's going to come out physically. When we begin to unlock those little knots, right, and dissipate some of that pain, which is painful, right? That journey
Mhm.
is painful in itself. People begin to feel better.
Yeah.
People begin to dose down on their medication. People begin to live and begin to thrive. And it's such a beautiful process. And I think kind of that's what you're alluding to.
Yeah. For me, for me, I don't know if you've looked into it all, but traditional Chinese medicine, they have a lot of, I thoughts about where certain
Mm,
emotions are stored, like liver is anger and gallbladder is resentment, hence gall, So for me, I have a weak liver because I have a lot of anger from things that happened as a child that I didn't have control over, but I felt like I wasn't protected for various reasons. And then also, I started having gallbladder attacks before I got divorced.
Really?
And my gallbladder would literally flare when we would get into a discussion about things that maybe weren't as fun to talk about. So it very much for me was tied to emotions, and it was I remember waking up in the middle of the night and being in such a gallbladder attack that we almost went to the hospital because I was in so much pain. And I have two kids. I had a C-section with my first, and I had a VBAC with my second. So I'm like, I'm no pain. This was pretty up there. This was pretty up there. Just gonna say it. And
Yeah.
so it was just wild how much it correlated for me. And I was like, if it's correlating for me, imagine how it is for other people. And so again, okay, I did Reiki 1 certification when I was an esthetician in my 20s and really enjoyed it and talked, over the years about getting further certifications in it, but never actually did that until more recently. And it was because I had to see firsthand exactly how much the emotion aspect affected me physically for me to recognize and be like, this is an important piece of the puzzle, especially my puzzle. So again, just wanting to talk about that with other people and kind of let them know so that they can be aware and make choices in their lives that are going to be the best ones for them. Because I mean, think about how many people just go through life doing, the mundane day-to-day things, just plugging away and not realizing, like, hey, if you did this or, tried this or, so I just want to have conversations about that to kind of, again, plant seeds.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful and so important. So, so important. And you also mentioned food, right? What's in the food and the corn and the corn rage. And I'm thinking, I have a grandson, he's 5, right?
Hmm.
And I'm thinking about school lunches and kind of what he consumed. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, it's literally beige food, like chicken nuggets, pizza, mac and
Yeah.
cheese, the red punch. And it's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, what are we feeding? What are we feeding? Any thoughts about kind of kids or grandkids? And I mean, this has to affect them too, I would imagine.
So red dye 40 is a known issue for kids and adults, but especially in kids. And so if you have a child that is struggling to pay attention or maybe is a little bit more defiant than, um, you know, but it kind of comes and goes, and
Yeah.
maybe they aren't able to, kind of sit as long as some other kids or pay attention as long. The first thing that I wish everybody would do before going to the doctor to get on, medication or have them tested for ADHD is to look at their diet first and remove food dyes immediately from their diet and see where they go from there. And for me, that's kind of like, is it easier than giving a pill? No, but the pill is just a band-aid, and they all have side effects, very much so. And a lot of kids that were on ADHD medication growing up tend to kind of get stuck on certain drugs as they get older, statistically speaking, because they're in that kind of system of, oh, let me look outside myself, as opposed to being like, okay, let me figure out what the root cause of this is and go from there. I don't want people to just do a diet or I'm not looking for a quick fix. We're looking for sustainable lifestyle changes that can overhaul the type of life that you're living. And is it easy? No. Is it worth it? 100%.
Yeah, I
But
can
that's
see,
everybody's choice.
I can feel that you really feel passionate about this, right? You really feel strongly. You really feel passionate about the food and the connection between health and mood and yeah, really feeling the passion right now. Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely, absolutely. So, what about we've talked a lot about the kind of, the downside of things, but I do want listeners to know that, there is hope, right? There's a lot you can do. There is hope. I think this
Yeah.
journey, even though it's difficult, can be empowering, right? Because it kind of gives you back control. So
Yeah.
let's talk about hope and let's talk about some things, actionable things that people can actually begin to kind of add in.
So on my journey, a lot of it has been like a self-love journey too. And recognizing that, hey, when I'm really upset or stressed out, I eat foods that I know are going to be triggers for me, like, a brownie. Oh, that's got xanthan in it, even though it's gluten-free. I'm going to eat it anyways. Why am I doing that? Why am I, like in um, thinking that that I'm not worthy to, you know, make changes in my life, that I don't deserve to have goodness in my life, and really looking at those. Um, so for me, it started out as just, okay, well then I don't know what I can eat, so I'm just gonna eat whole foods. And an easy way to do that is to kind of shop around the perimeter of the store as opposed to in the center of the store, because the perimeter of the store is typically where, the frozen food is, where like you can get your frozen produce, which is a great way to eat healthy on a budget, especially organic, because it's a lot less expensive than just buying, organic, and it lasts longer too, because it doesn't go bad as fast, obviously, in the freezer. So that's a great tip that I recommend to people, is to always shop the perimeter of the store. You're going to be getting less preservatives, and you know what you're going to be eating instead of having to read all of the labels. Um, and I'm a firm believer in the 80-20. And so 80% of the time you eat great, and you're, meticulous about everything, and you're not eating any candy or any cookies or anything like that. And 20% of the time you're going to that barbecue and you're going to enjoy yourself, and you're not going to feel bad about it, because you know what? You still have to live life too, and you still want to enjoy it too. And like, you got to have some balance. So I don't want people to start feeling like, oh my God, I've got to look at it, and cause, an eating disorder in that manner, because that's not serving anybody either. But just to be more mindful of it. And, in my course, I actually, came up with an elimination diet journal with like prompts for you to do every day and stuff, so that like you can do it all on your own, and it's kind of guided. I do like a video so that it kind of guides you along and stuff. And obviously, if you have any questions, you can always reach out, but it's an easy way for people to be able to kind of go on this journey without having to spend a lot of money on, say, like a naturopath or a functional doctor, because most of your regular doctors that are your primary care, they're not going to know a lot about nutrition or a lot about the elimination diet. And even if they do know that, they are so overcome with all of the work that they have to do. They don't really have the time to kind of babysit you and be like, oh, well, make sure you're doing this, or how's this going, or anything like that. If you do find a doctor like that, that's awesome and amazing. Keep them. Um, but like I said, there are few and far between, which is why I, work with my own primary care physician's office, to be like, hey, because to facilitate the gap between what the doctor says, hey, you need to change some things, otherwise there's going to be problems in the future, and, kind of actually implementing the steps, because that can be very overwhelming for a lot of people. And so that's why I wrote the book, and that's why I did the course, was to kind of break down those things into bite-sized information that people can, absorb on their own and be like, okay, and how's this feel? And give them the resources so they can go look up the studies themselves, and, if they choose to, and be like, oh, okay, yep, this is what she was talking about in this module, and yep, this is what yeah, okay. So a big thing is just to start eating more whole foods. And it doesn't have to be like overnight. I like to do crowding out. So
What is
instead
that?
of being
Tell
like,
me
oh, a
more.
whole overhaul of all of your fridge and your cabinets and everything, because one, that's super expensive, especially these days. But also, that's not really realistic, and definitely not sustainable, because you're going to fall back into your old habits sometimes. And especially if you're trying to do something really quick and just get it done, it typically doesn't work out so well, because you're not addressing the causes underneath of why you're doing those things. So it the whole foods is a big thing. And then also just getting out in movement. I don't care if it's like, a 10-minute yoga video in the morning or at night to just calm you down and bring you back into your body and be like, oh, okay, and just relax and have that time to yourself. I mean, I don't go to a yoga studio for that. And so I try to address these things because I know not everybody has the means or the time or whatever it is to be able to do those things. So it's like, okay, well, you can do, there's great yoga instructors that have free videos on YouTube. I just put them on my TV, like, and just, do one, can be 10 minutes, can be 20 minutes, can be an hour, whatever length
Hmm.
you decide works for you. And you can find the yoga instructor that speaks most to you. But that's a great way, taking the stairs instead of the elevator or escalator. Little steps like that, they add up to huge impact. And that's when you get the sustainable things. That's when you realize and you look back and you're like, huh, all these steps led to where I am now. But if I had tried to do that, it took a long time to get to where I am, like,
Hmm.
a few months or whatever it is. It took a while to get there, but look how far I've come and look now where I am, and I feel amazing, and I wouldn't go back to that. And now if I do eat a dinner roll, I'm gonna know, and it's not gonna feel good, and I'm gonna be like, oh, that was a bad idea. And over time, it starts to be like,
Yeah.
that's not worth it to me anymore. Like to
Yeah.
feel that bad, it's not worth it to me anymore.
Yeah. And I think that's where the real wins come in when you actually begin to kind of change your taste buds and change your habit and really feel when you take something in. Like for me, I've got a sugar thing. I've worked on it for a long time, but you have an overload of sugar, and then I feel like right? And I can do the direct correlation. And of course, I always kick myself in the rear end afterwards, but I'm so mindful and I so feel it. And it feels so yucky that it actually, I avoid it. I avoid it as much as I can. So in
Mhm.
time, you kind of get to that. I call it kind of wisdom, right? You're really tuning in with your body and you're really developing this kind of internal wisdom about what your body likes and what it doesn't like. And then you're listening to it, right?
Mhm.
So
One thing
important.
I want to touch on, though, that you said is that you beat yourself up when you do that. So that's a
Okay.
huge thing.
True, true,
That's a
true.
huge thing that I preach because this was huge in my own healing, not even
Okay.
just physically, but also emotionally. I can't emphasize how important it is to give yourself grace when you mess up and to talk to yourself when you mess up and be like, it's okay. It's okay. We messed up today and tomorrow is a new day and we can start fresh tomorrow. And just talk to yourself because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people, they're in the same loop of like, well, I ate like crap, so now I'm going to beat myself up. So now I'm going to be like good for a little bit, but then I'll feel bad and then I'll eat like crap. And it's just the same loop over and over and over. But if you break that and you say, you know what, today wasn't the best day, and that's okay. And you go, tomorrow will be better. And you go on from there. You don't have to dwell on it. You don't have to flog yourself or anything. You just keep going because I find that a lot of people do try to like kind of mentally flog themselves for doing all of these things that they did wrong. And it's like, it's a learning experience.
I love that. And as I'm thinking about my internal dialogue, it does go something like, "Oh my gosh, you did it again. You know better." And but there's a tone, right? There's it's not really a compassionate, warm thing. It's like, there is a bit of that self kind of flogging, right?
Hmm.
So thank you for the coaching. I appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
But it's super empowering because, like you said earlier, it is very empowering because, like, not only are you making better choices for your health, which feels good to you too on like so many levels. But also, you're not reliant on other people to tell you what is good and what isn't good for
Mm,
you and your health. You know what's good for you and your health because you figured it out on your own. And doctors, yes, they are absolutely very knowledgeable and there's a time and a place for them, but nobody's going to know your body and the signs that it's giving better than you. And so like I recommend to people, the elimination diet. And if they don't need to do an elimination diet, at least a food journal for this reason to bring them back into their body, to bring them back into like, hey, I eat this food and this is how I feel. because so many people, they're eating in front of the TV, they're eating in the car, they're eating on the on the road, and they're not being mindful of it, and we're very disconnected. And so to bring awareness back into like, this is the food that I'm eating, and to slow down how fast we're eating too, because that's a huge thing. We're supposed to chew at least like 20 to 22 times every bite before we swallow. Who does that?
Who
Honestly,
does that?
like,
Yeah.
and so, most people are like inhaling food, trying to get it. I worked in a spa. So for me, sometimes it was only 5 minutes that I could eat. And, so it was like, okay, and just go on to the next client. And for years and years and years, I did that. And how much did that really help me at all? Pretty sure not at all. But, so it's just those tools, doing the food diary and an elimination diet, they bring you back into your body and make you aware of the signs that your body's giving you, and it makes you in tune with them. And from there you can start to be like, oh, I see what you were doing there, body. Thank you for telling me that, instead of being like, why didn't you do what I wanted you to do, and berating your body for being like, hey, I need help, I'm drowning here, I'm trying, and you're like, you aren't working like I want you to, let me flog you some more, and then you'll feel bad about that. So you go and eat some candy, and then you feel bad about that. And then here we go. There's the cycle again. So you just got to
Wow.
break that loop, but it doesn't happen overnight. Just like with therapy, it doesn't happen overnight, but consistency is important. And that's why it's really good to have a health coach like, myself, or, someone that works with you, because we're your biggest cheerleaders. We're the ones that are like, when you're like, I can't do this, or like, I don't know what I'm going to do, or I'm just, feeling it today. We're the ones that are like, you know what? Today's a day, and that's okay. We're the ones reminding you to be gentle with yourself and to give yourself grace as you hold yourself accountable for your actions, because it's not just like, oh, okay, and that's all right. And oh, no, okay, yep, I did that. And moving forward, now I'm going to be doing this. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to go way back to the beginning of that, what's so powerful is that you were really in the driver's seat, right? Instead of relying on the external validation or motivation or the comments or whatever, right? You were truly in what I call the seat of your power, right? You were
Mhm.
truly like driving the bus. You're driving the bus, which is
Mhm.
so powerful, so powerful.
Yeah.
So
And that brings you to
wonderful
like a
tips.
self-love journey, which is really what, like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So wonderful tips. So before I ask you that last kind of sage advice question, is there anything else that is important to you that you'd like to share today?
Um, read labels. It's important to read
Mm,
labels. Like, I know it's boring, and I know it's not fun, but at the same time, the food that we're eating isn't necessarily food. It's food-like products. And um, if it's just important to read the labels and actually know what you're consuming. And you don't have to, like, once you start recognizing, oh, okay, this brand tends to be something that I can eat, or this brand tends to be cleaner, or whatever, then you start to kind of recognize like, oh, okay, this is something that I can have this, and it's not quite so tedious all the time. So even if you just grab, like, read the labels of the things that you grab the most of when you're at the store, that's, it's just super helpful. And trying to, um, maybe instead of getting the yogurt that already has, the fruit and sugar and all of that stuff in it, because that's processed and it's actually not as good for you as plain yogurt, then you can just put some fresh fruit or frozen fruit in the yogurt with a little bit of honey, which would be great for your gut as well. And have it that way. And you're still getting the sweet, you're still getting fruit, and it's actually healthier for you. So just little tricks and tips like that, that again, when you take those small steps, they add up to a big impact. And you won't even realize it until you realize it and you look back and you're like, huh, okay, this is cool.
yeah, yeah. I think that's where the journal comes in, right? Is if you can
Hmm.
begin to track from the beginning, you can use it as a document, right? And look back to see where you've come. I think journaling is really, really powerful. Yeah. Great,
Absolutely. And you see
great
all the
tips.
patterns and stuff, and it's a great way for you to, again, get to know yourself and your body better. And
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
powerful tool. Highly
Yeah, for
recommend
sure. For
it.
sure. Me too. So my final question is, if you had some sage advice to share with listeners about living intentionally, it doesn't really have to be just around kind of gut health and food. What would that be?
Um, what I say to my kids all the time, uh, are you coming from your heart? You
Mm,
know? And honestly, that can, when I sit there and think about things and I'm like, does this feel good to me? Does this feel good in my heart? And I actually think about that, I never get an answer that is the wrong answer ever. So,
I love that. I love that. I'm all about kind of creating heart-centered, intentional lives, and that
mhm.
question, right? You can kind of just drop in and check in, like, okay, am I really coming from my heart here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So thank you, Kate. I will be sure to put links, etc., in the show notes. But if people want to reach out and connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, sure. You can always find me on my website, which will have, links to the services and like the book and everything like that. And that's integratewithkate.net. And you can also find me on Instagram at integrate period with period Kate, as well as on Facebook, and where else am I? LinkedIn under Kate DaCosta. Although I did get married recently, so I might be not changing it, but adding another name to the end of that. So
Got it. Well, congratulations on the marriage, and
thank you.
thank you so much for your time today and just such a generous conversation and so many actionable strategies for people listening today. So I appreciate what you're doing and what you're bringing into the world. I think it's so important. And I will again put those links in the show notes so people can reach out.
Thank you. This was a great chat. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you. See you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening today. I really appreciate you and your time. Remember that I do love to hear from listeners, so connect with me at katechampionauthor.com. Grab your free hiking guide, share your favorite episode with a friend, and subscribe to the show. Until next time. Hey, me again. Just a reminder, this podcast should not be considered professional advice. It's also not a substitute for mental, physical, or any other healthcare related treatment. For any questions about your condition and or concerns, please contact a fully licensed healthcare professional. Thank you.